Okay, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting of Broadland District Council. Again, just to remind everyone that this is being streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. And moving on to the agenda that you have before you. Just picking up on a couple of things there as we start. Just like to advise, breaking up, sorry about that. Advise I'll get over it then. Okay, so I'd just like to advise members that following the meeting of Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee on Friday the 12th of November, it has been concluded that further work is required on the accommodation review, and therefore it has been decided to withdraw the report from today's Cabinet agenda. So item 14 is no longer there. Also, item 10, the Household Support Fund evidently is stuck in traffic. So, oh, no, sorry, I stand corrected. The Household Support Fund is no longer stuck in traffic and has arrived, so we won't be having to delay that when we get to it. So we'll carry on with that one in the order that it's in. Apologies, Jamie. Okay, so start at the beginning with the first item. So is there any declarations of interest? No, not tonight. Okay, thank you for that. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, we have apologies from Councillor Wymark.
Thank you for that, James. That moves us on then to the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 19th of October. So take those on block, starting at page 7. Anything in there that needs adding, changing, deleting, enhancing? No? Okay, so I will take those as being correct if you're happy for me to sign those off. Good. Any matters arising in there for anybody? No. Okay, so that's good. Moving forward then to public speaking. I don't believe we have any public speaking this evening. No public speaking this evening. Item 6 is representations from non-cabinet members. So we have a couple of non-cabinet members here this evening, so welcome. As usual, if there's any point where you want to come in, please feel free to let me know, and if it's appropriate, I'll try and bring you in. Also, at this point, I think, Councillor Leeming, you've got a question that you want to ask, so this would be the appropriate point to do that. So if I hand over to you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. The vision for our place in the Broadland District Council Delivery Plan states that it will take proactive steps to preserve the natural environment, but it mentions nothing specific about the need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions or reach net zero. This need is not mentioned in the delivery measures table, which tracks service performance. In the programme of work, H5, there is a brief mention of the need to reduce the council's carbon footprint, but no specific targets or carbon budget. Since climate change is the biggest issue likely to affect Broadland, maybe it should have more of a focus. Would the council be willing to reconsider its vision and strategy in the light of this?
Okay, thank you for that. And I'd ask the portfolio holder for environmental excellence to respond.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Your question refers to the delivery plan, which was written to cover the current period up to March 2022. And during 2021, we added a dedicated staff member and a reserve to the environmental plan. The Council has committed in its environmental strategy to reducing its carbon emissions and to achieve net zero. A carbon audit has been commissioned, and this is due to report in January 2022. At the same time, the Council's future office accommodation is under review, and this has got a strong environmental theme. The Council's environment strategy sets a target for net zero for our estate, And once the carbon audit is completed, we'll know our starting point for a decarbonisation strategy. I expect that this will focus on options, measures and targets for achieving net zero. These would then be incorporated into the business planning process and updated environmental strategy as appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that. Judy, is there anything you want to ask in response?
No, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
reply.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so that moves us on then to Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Good evening, Martin. Unfortunately, Steve's not well tonight, so he was not here. So you've stepped into the fray, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Is there anything you want to say at this point in time, or
No,
do you want to come in as we go through if there's anything you want to?
that's required.
Okay, well, if you can just let me know and I'll bring you in at appropriate times. Thank you for that. Okay, so that moves on then to item 8, so Service Improvement Efficiency Committee. Jonathan?
Yeah, we're just noting those minutes. They're all there as seen.
Okay, thank you. We'll receive those minutes. It moves on to item 9, page 24. So that's the Treasury Management Quarter 2 report. Who's doing this one? Okay, so over to you. I don't think your mic's on.
No.
You're having the same
Is that
problem I'm
better?
having.
Thank you. This is just a factual report that just gives an overview of the council's treasury position at the quarter 2 point, end of September. Just a few things to point out on the report. Interest rates for our fixed term investments do remain low, but there are signs that these rates could rise slowly. Our treasury advisors have predicted a rise of possibly to 2.25% in June 22, then steadily rising thereafter. The income that we've received over the quarter is principally derived from payments that were received from our diversified income fund. It's an element of our cash that we invest in longer term investments that produces our best return. We've had no borrowing requirement for the council's operations to date this financial year. And the report also includes a measure of performance against our treasury prudential indicators, and we can report there have been no breaches of the indicators in the first 6 months of the year. And the report also includes a summarised update on the economic environment from our treasury advisors link. And happy to take any questions brought up by the report.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for being so concise. So, Trudy, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, just to say, obviously, at this point, this report is to note. It will be reviewed, as it always is every year, ahead of the February budget. I don't want to steal Martin's thunder, but I did listen to the overview and scrutiny concerns. And I just wanted to really include a paragraph that's already in the strategy. So what we've already got written in is the council, in making investments through its treasury management function, supports the ethos of socially responsible investments. We will actively seek to communicate this support to those institutions we invest in, as well as those we are considering investing in, by encouraging those institutions to adopt and publicise policies on socially responsible investments, and requesting those institutions to apply council deposits in a socially responsible manner. So just to say, when we reviewed the policy last year, that was included, and we will look at it again and see if we need to tighten it up ahead of the February budget. Other than that, I would like to recommend 1 and 2 on page 24. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone second that? Thank you, Joe. Okay, are there any questions on the Treasury Management report that's before you? No? Okay, so you have the recommendations on page 28, 7.11 and 7.12. that have been proposed and seconded? All those in favour?
3, 4, 6. It's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you for that, James. Okay, so that moves us on then to item 10, which is the Household Support Fund. So joining us, Jamie? Okay, so I'll hand over to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. So I'll be very brief. The government made available to localities and to Norfolk the sum of 6.7 million in October, a household support fund, the design of which is around supporting households who are experiencing financial hardship. And I suppose the context of that is a post-COVID world, increasing living costs, as we're all fully aware. The money was given to Norfolk County Council, and Norfolk County Council has been deliberating since its receipt how best to deploy that money. I must pause there and apologise that the paper in front of you is written to be quite vague, because at the time of writing we weren't quite aware of all of the details, but I can fill you in a little bit more on that now. The fund itself is relatively open in terms of how it can be used. The only limitations are not allowing us to use the money for mortgage payments or debt advice, but everything else seems to be on the table, which is really quite welcome, given that often with these sorts of funding pots there are quite stringent controls to how they can be utilised. So that gives us a lot of local autonomy. The amount of money that Norfolk County Council is going to make available to Broadland District Council is £128,000. And that's out of a total pot made available to district authorities of 1.4 million from the total pot available. The rest of the money from Norfolk County Council is being given over to families via largely existing mechanisms such as free school meals, via food banks, and the voluntary sector more generally. The paper details how we intend to deploy the money locally, and councillors hopefully can take some reassurance to see that we're very much looking to be on the front foot in terms of proactively giving the money to families we know who are in hardship, rather than waiting for families in hardship to contact us and ask for help, although some money will be held back for that kind of more reactive support. Chair, I think I'll stop there, and happy to take any questions if any are forthcoming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Jamie. Again, just picking up on from the portfolio holder who sadly couldn't be here tonight because he's not well. He just wanted a few words just fed in, just to say that he was pleased that we are proactively working to support our most vulnerable residents. The support is focused upon need and not benefit criteria. With ever increasing food and fuel bills, this fund will ensure that Broadland residents will not be cold and hungry this winter. So some good points from Fran on that one. Okay, so the recommendation is on page 35, 8.1. Joe, do you want to?
Yes, this is an amazing scheme, and I'm really pleased to see this come forward. I think we will see families in real hardship over the winter with the increase in bills, especially utility bills. So I'd like to propose to Cabinet recommendation on page 31 to delegate the spend of the Household Support Fund to the Assistant Director of Individuals and Family in conjunction with the portfolio holder for housing and wellbeing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for proposing that. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Judy.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions in relation to for Jamie? Because we can't let him off that easily. I've got a couple for you just to get the ball rolling. One of the concerns with this is around double payments, or people finding themselves in a place where they can get more than one contribution. Is there steps put in place to try and stop that from happening, while obviously supporting the need where it is?
Yeah, Chair, that's an excellent question. And given the amounts of points of access in our system to hardship, there is inevitably going to be some of that risk. So councillors will remember, perhaps through COVID, we set up a system called the Norfolk Vulnerability Hub, which we used at the time to help us manage and understand the support that was being offered to the clinically extremely vulnerable. That system still exists and is still being used, and the intention will be to use that system. So district councils, the county council, and an array of different voluntary sector partners all have access to that system, which means we have an ability to have a single record, if you like. It doesn't mean it's foolproof, and there will inevitably be, as there has been through the whole COVID pandemic, some element of misappropriation of the system by a very small minority of residents. But the Norfolk Vulnerability Hub will help to mitigate that situation. I think the focus for us, though, given the timetable set by government, is to get the entire pot of money of 6.7 million to those that need it by March. The focus is on speed and proactivity, and whilst the mitigation is hopefully helpful, I don't know that it'll remove any sense of, as I say, misappropriation in the system, but gives us some degree of control.
Thank you for the reassurance on that. And my second question is around effectively the budget itself. Obviously, you talked about the 6.7 million, and we've got 128,000. Is that on a first come, first served basis, or is there some criteria around priority setting there?
Sorry, Chair, do you mean in terms of our council's access to the wider pot, or do you mean in terms of residents' access to our pot?
Residents' access to our pot. We obviously don't control the wider pot, do we?
No, of course. Yes, to some degree, it is first come, first served. But I think hopefully we're able to get to the people who need the support the most by using some of our existing access chains, such as the Warm Homes Fund, and also some of our really helpful data sets. So by looking across things like council tax support, benefits, our homelessness teams, we're able to quite readily identify those people who are clearly in some degree of distress already. And I think that will help us to make sure that the money goes to the people who really need it. There is always a danger with being reactive, that the people who know how to access the system are the ones that can access it the most readily. And I think we're very keen to avoid that and target those who we know are in some sort of distress.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions, Jonathan?
Yeah, obviously, touching on that point about the fact that the overall fund was 6.7 million and we got 128,000, obviously, did all the districts get the same sort of amount? And if there is access to any at a later stage, obviously to keep an eye on how the money is spent, would there be a possibility of maybe going back in a later stage and getting some more if they've still got some to spend by the end of March?
So the money was given to districts on a weighted basis, and I think the weighting was proportioned on the number of people claiming benefits. So, to me, there's some logic to that. So I think that's a reasonable factor. In terms of the size of the pot of money, yes, I can probably anticipate that we will be challenged to get all the money out the door by the end of March, and therefore I very much anticipate there will be a second opportunity to seek more funding, and we'll be hopefully ready to do so.
Okay, thank you for that. Sue?
Hi, thanks for the report. It's excellent news to see this fund coming forward. How quick, and forgive me if you've already explained, but how quickly will this be up and running for residents?
As soon as we were aware of the money and in anticipation of receiving some at a district, we've already been putting in place some of the data work we need to identify the families and residents who will need the assistance. As soon as the money is received by us, we'll be ready to start giving it out.
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, so recommendation is 8.1 on page 35, which has been proposed and seconded. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Jim.
Thank you, James. Okay, so that moves, thank you for that, Jamie. That moves us on then to item 11, the Strategic Performance and Finance Report for Q1 and Q2. And I'll just fill in while Sinead joins us at the table. Okay, so hand over to you.
Lovely, thanks, Chair. So I will take you through a high-level overview of the performance and the delivery plan update for Q2, and then I'll hand over to Maddie, who will cover the finance section. We've also got a number of the directors and ADs in the room to answer any detailed questions on service performance. So in terms of the reports you've got in front of you, you have a high-level overview of the performance, the delivery plan, as I've said, and we've also included the strategic risk register, which is very much in a draft format and will be updated, and we'll bring that back through to Cabinets in Q4. So just in terms of the overall health of the council this quarter, so we currently have 17 measures which are green, And this means they're on track and currently hitting the targets we set in our delivery plan for 21-22. We have 4 measures which are currently amber, which means they're not currently on track, but they're within the tolerances that we have set. We have 3 measures which are red, which means they are currently missing the targets that we've set in our delivery plan. We then have 4 measures which are annual measures, which we bring through to cabinets in quarters 4. And then we still have 3 measures which are being baselined, and this is essentially for us to understand the current performance levels and to help us set our targets in the future. So I'll just quickly touch upon a few areas of interest in terms of our performance indicators. So the first one to draw your attention to is the number of residents supported by discretionary prevention services. So in the first half of the year, we've supported over 1,360 residents, which is well above where we should be in terms of middle of the year, as our year-end target is 2,000. So we are more than halfway there. In terms of another measure to draw your attention to is throughout Q1, we have successfully secured 5.7 million to support the Broadland Innovation Centre. And we've also had an additional £670,000 secured in Q2 for Broadland's allocation to the Norfolk Business Rates Pool. Just to touch upon a measure which is currently amber, which is the collection of our business rates. So previously, members may remember we reported in Q4 this measure was red. We can now report this measure is now amber, with the collection rates being higher than this time last year. But we are still currently lower than the historical averages for this, and we're currently sitting at 51.88% in Q2. And finally, just to touch upon 2 of our red measures this quarter, which are the percentage of planning decisions made within statutory timescales. And this is for both minors and householders. So these measures are both currently sitting at 76%, and both of these are below our targets that we've set for year end of 90%. But this can really largely be explained by the experience between April and August of delay in registering applications, and also a subsequent rise in the number of planning applications we received in that same period. We've also been putting some additional support within the planning services in place, and we're hoping to be back on track by the year end. And just finally, in the appendix, in Appendix 3, we have provided a 6-month update of the 21-22 delivery plan. And this is really to give you, as members, a status update in terms of where we are on delivering some of our key projects and also our business as usual activities. So I'll pause there. As I said, we've got directors in the room for any service-specific questions.
Thank you for that. Okay, so is there any questions or things at this point in time? Actually, I think, Jonathan, you probably need to go first, don't you?
I was just going to say, obviously, looking at the report, it's a good piece of work because it brings together all the information for us in one place. I think personally, even at these times when things are getting back to normal, but they're not 100% back to normal, to see so much green and so few problems, I think we can be very proud of the way that the one team work together and bring everything going forward. We've obviously got the performance dashboard on page 42, which highlights all that information. And then obviously we have got the drilling down, as it were, from page 55, which is the more in-depth information about the different performance measures. I think we should be all very proud of the way that we are able to be in this position. And I thank them, all the team, for putting all the work in to get to this place. So overall, I'm extremely pleased to see the way we are with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Trudy?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment really on 3 measures. One being the council tax. It is pleasing to see it's moved to amber. And it's also pleasing to see that actually the rates are slightly ahead of this time last year. And just to note really that we will continue to engage with customers to offer support, or residents to offer support where they are in financial difficulty, but we will continue to try and collect what we need to collect, bearing in mind we need to support the rest of the residents as well. And then again with business rates, same thing really, it's higher than it was last year, and help is again being offered through extended payment arrangements and signposting to advice services and also in economic development. Excuse me. And then finally, it's measure number 20, the housing benefit and council tax benefit, I think I've got to congratulate the team. Performance has remained outstanding in very difficult times. And you can see in that measure just how much funds have been paid out by the team. And as I said, their performance within timelines has been outstanding. So I just wanted to recognise that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Trudy, anybody? Sue?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify the situation with the planning decisions. And as it's been already said, that it was due to the volume of applications that were coming through. And once we came out of lockdown, the team are working extremely hard to get everything back on track again. And I anticipate by Q4 we will be well and truly back on track again. The team are working hard to get there.
Okay, thank you for that. So there's an action plan to get us back to the green, which is good. Okay, Joe?
Yes, I just want to comment on growing the economy on the bottom of page 43, external funding to support growth. The 5.7 million was secured from the European Regional Development Fund for the Broadland Food Innovation Centre. The staff worked really hard on that, as did Councillor Mancini-Boyle, and it was very touch and go with MHCLG, and everyone went above and beyond. So I just want to say thank you very much for that amazing effort.
Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Judy, do you want to come in?
Yes, I just want to refer to one or two of the measures. I think the majority of the waste services are in a very good place. I note that we were one of only two of us districts who actually collected food waste throughout the period. The thing that isn't so good is the mixed bins, but I'm assured that that is a recording error, or a recording. There are problems with the way that is recorded. And I believe they have a paper system, but they're going to have an in-cab system in future. So we will be monitoring it. And also it's also important because in the next contract, there can be penalties if the missed bins are not the size we want them to be. So that's good. And just the other side on the food inspections, I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that 98% of the premises inspected were either rated 4 or 5. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got a few comments from Fran just to throw in as well. So he would like to commend the Communities and Housing team for continuing to ensure they support our most vulnerable through the most difficult of times. On pages 66 to 71, it is clear that even with the difficulties presented by COVID and the pandemic, we've continued to offer very good services to our residents. Picking up further on in page 91 to 101, he'd just like to recognise that the communities and early help teams are working with partners to provide discretionary services which were essential during COVID. And also the partnership working with the NHS, the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Norfolk, county districts and city councils have allowed us to extend and enhance that support. Also then moving on to pages 110 to 112, he wanted just to highlight our housing offering and the housing allocation policy, which was implemented in April this year. This has generally worked well, and we're seeing some deliveries there that are enhancing the way that works. But also that undertaking a review to learn from the lessons that can be implemented as part of that. I think that's covers Fran's bits, so thank you for that. I'd just like to thank you for pulling this report together. It just shows how well that the teams have worked through what's been a very, very difficult time. And it's always good to see that the greens are growing as such. And we're getting more of those appearing in the report as the performance measures move forward and become in the right place for us to understand and use them as flags. I can see Trevor's wanting to come in, so I'll just ask Trevor if you want to come in.
Chairman, if I could, thank you. And that's just to draw members' attention to some key staff indicators, which I think are really important to note. And that's on page 58 of the report, which reflects a high level of staff satisfaction in terms of how they feel supported by their line manager, and also the future of hybrid working. And those, perhaps unsurprisingly, when you note those figures, you start to see that actually our staff retention rates are running about 5% higher than normal. Now, sometimes you could say, well, that's due to the economy, but we're going through what I think in some personnel magazines is described as the big what's it called? The Great Resignation. Yet we're not seeing that manifesting in our figures, which again is really testament to the work that's being put into supporting staff. And something else which is in those figures, which I'm really proud of as head of paid service, is our focus on drawing in apprentices. And we're now up to, I think, 23, 24 apprentices within the young team. And they are really sharp young people who are going to be future leaders. So there's some key things that I wanted to just draw to the attention of Cabinet, which are happening in the workforce, which are really, really positive and set fair to continue. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah, it's heartwarming to hear the activity that's gone on with the apprenticeships, and welcome this evening to Dominic, who's joining us. So thank you for the work you're doing within the IT team. So yeah, it's looking good. Maddie, did you want to introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to present the Q2 financial position for the council. So we are currently estimating a favourable variance against the budget of 916,000. This budget actually also includes the carry forwards that we agreed for 2021, and it also includes a 1% provision for a pay increase, which obviously if it becomes higher, then that will reduce that favourable variance that we're currently forecasting. To summarise, resources are currently showing a favourable variance against budget of 199,000. This is primarily due to savings that we're forecasting with the corporate contingency budget and the cessation of the catering service, which we originally budgeted for in the 21-22 budget. And within IT, we have a couple of posts at the moment which are supporting the infrastructure work, which are being attributed to the COVID spend. Within the Place Directorate, we are estimating a favourable variance of 162,000, and this is primarily due to some savings that we're forecasting from the change in a contractor within the street lighting maintenance. We've also had a number of vacancies within the services which we're now recruited to as well, and we've also received some increased income from the stamp duty exemption from the extension from March to June. Within the People and Communities Directorate, we are forecasting a favourable variance of 528,000. This is primarily from recurring savings within the delivery of the clinical waste service and increased income through the bulky waste service. We also have some waste procurement fees which are not fully utilised at the moment within the budget. And we also have the disposal costs for the dry recyclable collections, which were not actually coming in as high as we first anticipated in the forecast. There's further information on these and explanations of the variances on the appendices on page 47. On the capital, we are currently showing a spend to date on the capital programme of 3.7 million. We're forecasting the favourable variance to come in against budget of 13.3 million. And this is made up from 6 million on the approved schemes, which is mainly from the refuse services and also the construction of the food hub into the next financial year. And then 7 million of that favourable variances on the provisional scheme from the rephasing of the Broadland growth monies. And I'll pause there for any questions.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Trudy, is there anything you want to add at this point?
Thank you. Just to say, obviously, Maddie's gone through this quite comprehensively. All the reasons for the variance are included in the report. I would say in 3.11, as it states, this saving this year must be seen as a one-off pot. So we're looking at how best to utilise the resource. So it has to be something, as I said, that is considered as a one-off as opposed to an ongoing resource. That work is actually continuing at the moment, and we've involved all members of the council in that to come up with ideas of how they would like that spent. I would therefore say at this particular moment in time, the suggestion in 3.12 of 3 different amounts there to be set aside, I would say we would not progress with that at this moment in time, because we're still putting the piece of work together on how we would like to spend the whole sum. So I would therefore recommend, as the paper says, to note 1, 2 and 3 on page 36, but to strike the comment of 1A. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Trudy? So thank you for seconding that, Jonathan. Are there any questions on the finances before you? Which I think Maddie has explained very well, so thank you for that. No?
I was just going to say, when you look at the table on page 38, where we've got that very green situation where we've got everything going the right way, it looks extremely well, considering that you do hear lots of news about councils sort of struggling. It shows that we are financially being very careful with what we do.
Yeah, no, well said. As far as being managing of our finances, so that's well picked up. Any other comments or questions? No. Okay. We've also got a couple of other reports on here. So there's Appendix 2's got the Strategic Risk Register. Appendix 3 has got the Delivery Measure Performance Report, which we've touched on a little bit. And then Appendix 4 has got the Delivery Plan, which has shown some of the amazing things we've done. Is there anything you wanted to add on any of those? No? Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so the recommendation is on page 36, 1, 2, and 3 with the deletion of 1A. Is that okay, James? Yeah. Which has been proposed and seconded. All those in favour?
It's unanimous, Jim.
Thank you, James. Okay, so that moves us on then to item 12, which is the update on the members' IT on page 176, which I think is down to you, Emma.
This is my gift, this one, Chairman. I'm sure Councillor Empsall will add. So we carried out the survey again in the summer months. We did get quite a low response. As I said at Overview and Scrutiny, the positive side of me means that hopefully it's all working a lot better than it used to, because I did hear that it wasn't quite a lot. So hopefully the software has seen some improvements for councillors with their iPads. There are no suggested changes at present, but we will start to, in spring 2022, start looking at different equipment that is available in terms of hardware and trialling those with some members in terms of what works best to meet your needs, so that prior to the elections in May 2023, we'll have a bit more of a picture over what may be the best piece of equipment to move forwards. It may be that we stay with iPads, but it may be that we move to something else. So we'll start those trials next year. That's what I was going to say, Chairman, on the report.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Jonathan, is anything you want to add?
Yeah, just to say that obviously, as me and Emma, when we're trying to engage the members as much as we can, because we want the IT to work for members. We do see obviously in 2.4 there that we're putting out a survey to ask the question, what works well for you, what doesn't work well for you, so we can update, what we do and look at different things. Obviously, the response was low. So, yeah, I would look at that to say that means there's more people who are happy than unhappy, but then we'll then go to a different meeting and we'll find that people are saying different things. So I want the IT to work as best as it can for the members, to mean the members can produce the most amount of work in meetings and, do well. So for me, we have the iPads that do the job that we told them to do, which was to have all the reports so we didn't have to have all the papers. The amount of postage was saved, the amount of paper we've saved, the amount of extra work we've saved for officers having to print out all the papers and bind them all together and send them out. So that the amount of work we've done to have them, they are working. And obviously we have had lots of questions about if they are right. Office 365 has improved the software side of the system. So hopefully that has improved members working with that. And obviously that changed quite a lot of the system. And I think moving forward, a review to see where we are with technology changing so much. I think, yeah, a 4-year cycle is pretty good, but you can't go longer than that because the technology changes. But for the new intake in May 2023, that will be the time to say, this is what we're going to have for the next 4 years. And I think that's a very structured way of doing it. So I think we accept this report and move forward with our plan to update things in May 2023, but with that year before to decide exactly what we need and what we need moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. Judy?
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask a question, please? On page, well, I won't say what page, but paragraph 2.6, it references that it would appear that within the feedback you had, that some more training was needed around iAnnotate, SharePoint and document management. And it was suggested that we ask the IT help desk. And I wonder if anybody had considered actually writing, giving some training, but in the format of documents with hints and tips. And in fact, you may already done it, but this is readily available to everyone.
Yeah, so in terms of training, I think whether it's members or officers, we all learn very differently. So what we are looking to do, not only with the officer rollout for training, but also members as well, is to provide documents or videos and things that you can just grab them. They'll be in SharePoint and you can just go online and have a look at them. So we are looking to develop those, but we're just kind of getting all the Office 365 rolled out for staff, but they absolutely will put those kind of things in there. And I'm quite keen as well for the committee services team, so that they've got the training on it, so that they can help members in meetings as well. So we are looking at the different ways of providing that.
Can I just say, obviously on that, I think quite a lot of our issues are more of a training issue than a equipment issue. We have had recently comments made which were involving the fact that the information was there, they were just looking in the wrong place. And that obviously causes confusion for different departments when questions are asked that are invalid, if you know what I mean. So saying the documents aren't there when they are there because they're in a different place. So I think the training issues are what we need to focus on. But it is unfortunately true that, again, the take up for training would be lower because although there is obviously an issue with some people not knowing how to do it, they won't admit they don't know how to do it. Therefore, they blame the machine, not themselves. So unfortunately, we have that situation where we could offer training and then the staff put on the training and then we get low turnout. So obviously then we're still stuck with the same place. But I think we are working on as much as we can to get the information out to people. And obviously the Office 365 is an easier system. So hopefully that is easier to follow and pick up on that.
Okay, so thank you for that, Jonathan. I think you're right. The need for us to have more training as members is apparent. That will help us improve the way in which we operate in using the kit that we've got. So I think picking up Judy's point and Emma, if you could facilitate that, that would be useful. I know you've got that on your agenda to do anyway. Okay, so are there any other questions relating to? No. Okay, so the recommendation is at 7.1 just to accept the report and to note the approach being taken, which I think we endorse as far as the looking to see what the how the kit requirements change moving forward, how technologies move forward to make sure that we're best placed for 2023. So don't believe we need a vote on that one, do we? No? Okay. So that moves us on then to item 13 at page 181, which is the forward plan. So that's before you. Are there any questions or anything in relation to the forward plan that anyone wants to pick up tonight? No? Okay, so we take the forward plan as it is, and that now moves us on to item 15, which is to the exclusion of press and public. So I will move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business, because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006 would be disclosed to them.